and welcome to LostGotham TV. This episode, we are going to be looking at another of Richard Laymon's books, and it's an important one for me. It's kind of exciting. It was a book I didn't think I would get to review, period, but then also just maybe not even this early. I thought it would maybe take me longer to be able to find a copy of it, but I was very fortunate enough to find somebody who let me read their copy of it, because it's not a book that is easy to find at all. And if you are a Richard Laymon fan, and if you're following these videos, I've mentioned it before. It's his rarest book. It was released under the pseudonym Carla Laymon. So Richard Laymon's middle name is Carl, and so he released this book under the pseudonym Carla Laymon because it is a romance book. And romance books are typically written by women, or at least that's our perception of things. And so the fact that he wrote this book and released it under a female pseudonym really makes me wonder what other potentially male authors have been releasing books under female pseudonyms. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. Maybe just to me. Anyway, enough stalling. So the book is called A Stranger's Arms. Okay, that's what it was called when it was released in English. Okay, and I bring that up early because I got to read a British copy of it because I don't read any other languages particularly well. My German is not great. My French is not great. My Spanish is less. So yeah, I needed to find a copy in English because it's actually a little bit easier, or at least I found it a little bit easier to find copies of this book in other languages. And so I did actually purchase myself a copy of this book in a foreign language. I think it's Swedish. I even though I wouldn't be able to read it, because I don't know if I will ever be able to own a copy of the book in English, I wanted to at least say that I had a copy of the book. And so this is it, okay? And you can kind of see up at the top here, Carla Laymon, okay? And the title is Et rum met spegla. And I'm probably pronouncing that horribly. But basically it translates to a room with mirrors. And at first I was kind of like, a room with mirrors? Is this the same book as A Stranger's Arms? Why wouldn't they just translate the title verbatim? But then I know from experience with movies and things, they will quite often alter the title of something from country to country. So it makes sense. But then once I got my hands on this, I was able to translate a few passages here and there, and it obviously is. And then, well, even before the translation, I tested a couple of bits because there is a difference in the number of chapters and the number of pages in this book versus the English version of the book. And so I was, I did some translation, but now that I have read the English language version, I understand where they got the title from, because there is a room that has mirrors in it in the story. I don't think that's a spoiler at all. So anyway, this is a romance book, which is a little bit unusual, but it's a book that Richard wrote earlier in his career. I believe it was released in 1984, and so that's within his first 4 or 5 years of working as a published author. He'd been publishing short stories in the 70s, but it wasn't until 1980 that he got his break with The Cellar, and then also A Secret Admirer, that he started actually publishing books. So yeah, it's within his first few years of writing, and some of that shows. But then also the fact that it is such a different genre for him. is so it's hard to say. He seemed to have done a lot of exploratory kind of work as a young author, because he's written children's books, he's written adult horror books, he's written romance. Around this same time, within a year or so, he he's going to release the Lawmen. And so we've got westerns, and we've got these different kind of genres going on as he's trying to kind of, I don't know, feel out the different markets, see what he really enjoys doing, and see what is popular for him. Okay, because sometimes as an artist, we don't get to create exactly what we would like to create. Sometimes it's a subgenre or a subsection of what we do that is actually commercially popular. And if you want to do something for a living, that's very important. You need that commercial appeal. And ultimately, he found that with horror. And I'm so glad for that, because he gave us so many amazing horror books. So, how does his romance book stand up to these other genres and types of books? So, at this point, I've read his children's books, and I've read his other books, and so I read his romance book, and there is the adult material there. There is there's sex, not rape, but sex. Um, there are some other situations, I won't go into detail, but some uncomfortable, irregular happenings. Um, there's some threats going on. I think that is kind of safe to say. Basically, the lead character in this book is Stephanie Davis, and she is a realtor, and so is she makes her living by selling houses, and she gets the opportunity to sell the house of a rich local person. Celebrity is not really the right word, but he's well known locally. And when she starts to interact with him to see about selling his house, she starts to receive threatening communications telling her to stay away from him. So there are some elements of dread and threat and things going on. So, I don't read romance novels. I can probably read the number of actual like romance novels I have read on one finger. But I didn't know what to expect. I've read other things that have romantic elements in them. Like, I've read a lot of the J.D. Robb books, which are sort of, if you haven't heard of them, they're slightly futuristic murder mystery, or not. So yeah, I guess they're all murder mysteries, but they're all mysteries, and they're written. J.D. Robb is actually the pseudonym of a writer called Nora Roberts, and Nora Roberts writes a lot of romance books. That's most of her stuff is romance books, closely followed by the J.D. Robb books. She is prolific. She puts out at least one, if not two books every single year. It is freakish. I would not be surprised if there's some stuff going on there with some ghost writers and stuff going on, because that's a lot of stuff to put out. Not to say anything negative about her, but I digress. So yeah, I haven't read a lot of romance. I didn't know what to expect. Honestly, it's an interesting book. I enjoyed reading it, and I recommend it. If you can get your hands on it, read it. It's rare. The fact that if you can get your hands on it, read it. Don't waste that opportunity. But honestly, I don't know if it was his inexperience, and I don't even want to say inexperience. That's not quite the word that I want, but his freshness to being a writer, or whether or not it's just something to do with the genre. Maybe this happens in every book. But Stephanie Davis, the lead character, our protagonist in A Stranger's Arms, she is the stereotypical bad woman. I don't, I don't, I don't see women like that. So I don't know. It seems so strange to me. So many of the women in Richard Laymon's other books are so strong. She seems strangely weak, and quite frankly irrational. Some of the assumptions that she makes about different things, and she flies off the handle at things, and so it left me quite confused. And I wasn't sure if it wasn't the best writing, or if it was written that way because that's kind of what's expected of the heroines of romance books. I was a little at a loss. So it's simultaneously this very interesting book because it is unusual for the author, but it's also a little bit disappointing. I mean, there's a lot of kind of this hype about it because it's so hard to find. But ultimately, do I recommend it? As I said before, if you can get your hands on it, read it. But don't expect it to be an instant favorite. I enjoyed a lot of what happens. The some of the characters are more interesting than others, but I felt it was a little heavy-handed and stereotypical. So take that as you will. Um, yeah, I don't think there's much more I can say about it. I apologize for rambling again. I think this video has gone pretty long. Thank you for hanging in with me. And yeah, so this book, I picked up mine in Swedish. I've seen another one. I think it's in Dutch. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, if you are aware of this book being published in another language other than English, Swedish, and I think Dutch, I'm not sure if it was French, maybe it was French, but I think it was Dutch. So if you know of this book, A Stranger's Arms by Carla Laymon, aka Richard Laymon, being published in any other languages, please let me know. What I'm trying to do with these videos is really collect together as much information as I can. And I am doing deep searches on the internet and talking with different people around the world to try to find this information. So if you have any information on rare books by Richard Laymon, please go ahead and leave me a comment, send me a message, something like that, so that I can continue to do these and bring this information to a wider audience so that more people can come and read and enjoy Richard Laymon with us. All right, that's it. I will let you go, but I will see you next time.